But it was the north that held him. From beyond that barrier of spruce there soon came a sound that man might have heard, neither the beginning nor the end of a wail, but something like it. Minute by minute it came more clearly, now growing in volume, now almost dying away, but every instant approaching. The distant hunting call of the wolf pack. What the hangman's noose is to the murderer, what the levelled rifles are to the condemned spy, that hunt cry of the wolves is to the wounded animal of the forest. Instinct taught this to the old bull. His head dropped, his huge antlers levelled themselves with his shoulders, and he set off at a slow trot toward the east. He was taking chances in thus crossing the open, but to him the spruce forest was home, and there he might find refuge. In his brute brain he reasoned that he could get there before the wolves broke cover. And then, again he stopped, so suddenly that his forward legs doubled under him, and he pitched into the snow. This time, from the direction of the wolf pack, there came the ringing report of a rifle. It might have been a mile or 2 miles away, but distance did not lessen the fear it brought to the dying king of the north. That day he had heard the same sound, and it had brought mysterious and weakening pain in his vitals. With a supreme effort he brought himself to his feet, once more sniffed into the north, the east, and the west, then turned and buried himself in the black and frozen wilderness of tamarack. Stillness fell again with the sound of the rifle shot. It might have lasted 5 minutes, or 10, when a long, solitary howl floated from across the lake. It ended in the sharp, quick yelp of a wolf on the trail, and an instant later was taken up by others until the pack was once more in full cry. Almost simultaneously a figure darted out upon the ice from the edge of the forest. A dozen paces, and it paused and turned back toward the black wall of spruce. "Are you coming, Wabi?" A voice answered from the woods. "Yes." "Hurry up! Run!" Thus urged, the other turned his face once more across the lake. He was a youth of not more than 18. In his right hand he carried a club. His left arm, as if badly injured, was done up in a sling improvised from a lumberman's heavy scarf. His face was scratched and bleeding, and his whole appearance showed that he was nearing complete exhaustion. For a few moments he ran through the snow, then halted to a staggering walk. His breath came in painful gasps. The club slipped from his nerveless fingers, and conscious of the deathly weakness that was overcoming him, he did not attempt to regain it. Foot by foot he struggled on, until suddenly his knees gave way under him, and he sank down into the snow. From the edge of the spruce forest a young Indian now ran out upon the surface of the lake. His breath was coming quickly, but with excitement rather than fatigue. Behind him, less than half a mile away, he could hear the rapidly approaching cry of the hunt pack, and for an instant he bent his lithe form close to the snow, measuring with the acuteness of his race the distance of the pursuers. Then he looked for his white companion, and failed to see the motionless blot that marked where the other had fallen. A look of alarm shot into his eyes, and resting his rifle between his knees, he placed his hands, trumpet fashion, to his mouth, and gave a signal call which, on a still night like this, carried for a mile. "Wahoo! Wahoo!" At that cry, the exhausted boy in the snow staggered to his feet, and with an answering shout, which came but faintly to the ears of the Indian, resumed his flight across the lake. 2 or 3 minutes later, Wabi came up beside him. "Can you make it, Rod?" he cried. The other made an effort to answer, but his reply was hardly more than a gasp. Before Wabi could reach out to support him, he had lost his little remaining strength and fallen for a second time into the snow. "I'm afraid I can't do it, Wabi," he whispered. "I'm bushed." The young Indian dropped his rifle and knelt beside the wounded boy, supporting his head against his own heaving shoulders. "It's only a little farther, Rod," he urged. "We can make it and take to a tree. We ought to have taken to a tree back there, but I didn't know you were so far gone, and there was a good chance to make camp, with 3 cartridges left for the open lake." "Only 3? "That's all, but I ought to make 2 of them count in this light. Here, take hold of my shoulders, quick." He doubled himself like a jackknife in front of his half-prostrate companion. From behind them there came a